The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline Firm, and I'm the Operations Director here at AXO. Thank you for being with us today for our first Ask an Expert webinar of the year. I'm also pleased to introduce Garrett Schatzer, our new Executive Assistant here at AXO. Today we have Michael Slater of WebVanta with us presenting our webinar. Michael and WebVanta redesigned AXO's website about 2 years ago, and it was a great experience. The website looks amazing. They were easy to work with, and our website is very easy for us to update. So we're very happy for him to be here today. So thank you, Michael, and you can begin when you're ready.
Great, thanks, Carolyn. So we're going to take some questions at the end, but you can also type questions into the chat whenever you want, and I will, if I have the opportunity, I'll try to weave them in as we go. Otherwise, we'll catch them all at the end. So when you're thinking about what to do with your website, really for any kind of website, this isn't just Orchestra websites, but pretty much anything, it's really important to start with your goals, because a website is such a big canvas. There's so many things that you could do that it's critical to sort of focus and keep in mind that really anything you do that pursues one goal tends to take away from the other goals because it adds competing content on the site. So it is really important to begin with your goals, and I would think for most Orchestra websites there's a variety of goals, and I would recommend that you sort of rank these in order when you start on your project and add any others that are important to you. You probably want to build the reputation of your orchestra. You want to build the community. You want to stay more connected into the community of people that are your donors, as well as people who come to concerts and musicians who are involved. For many organizations, of course, selling tickets is going to be a key goal of the website. And we'll look at a variety of ways to do that. You also typically would have another revenue source through donors, and so you're looking for ways to get more donors and make it easier for them to contribute. And then there are some other less obvious goals that are often equally important. For example, the more information you have on your website, the fewer people are going to have to call you to find out, how do I get to this facility, or what if I want a refund, or whatever. So, having great information on the site can really be helpful in reducing the number of unnecessary phone calls and emails you get. And then other kinds of support that you can provide to your customers and your donors if they want to get pictures of events, if they want to be able to share with their friends, various things you can do. Now, it wasn't that long ago that websites were pretty simple, but in the past few years, the web's become a much more sophisticated place, and people are accustomed to the very high-level experience that they get from major consumer sites. Also, as mobile has become super important, people expect the websites they visit to work well on their phones, and many, many people are using tablets now. And also just the design ethic has changed. People in the early days of websites, the designs were really constrained by what was easy to do on the web. Designs have become more sophisticated, and people are less focused on fitting on a small screen now that average screen size is bigger. And sort of the prevailing design aesthetic has become a more modern, open, sort of less fussy kind of design look. So, the combination of all these things is that if your website's more than a few years old, it's going to look dated to people. And, it's probably not the image that you want to be presenting. And it may not be as functional either. There have also been changes in the underlying technology. Using Flash, which was very common not too long ago, is really no longer a good idea, in part because it doesn't work on any Apple devices like iPhones and iPads. It's really important that sites be easy to update. It's an incredibly common problem that no one in the organization really knows how to update the website. If you have to call your web designer and have them make changes for you, then you don't make changes very often. And sites that are out of date, people stop using them, and they fail to meet the goals as well. If someone's looking for information on an event and that event isn't on the website, it's discouraging. And social media and email lists have become really common, and many websites that have been around for a while don't properly integrate those. So we're going to look at examples of all this. I apologize, there's a lot of sort of word slides and parts of this, but once I can get through some of this conceptual stuff, we're going to switch gears and look at a variety of websites, and we'll give you examples of all of these issues so that it isn't so abstract. But a few more conceptual pieces first. As you're thinking about the various things that go into a website, there's a lot of different components, and people, I think, often underestimate what's involved in building a great site. It's really, if you think about, building a new house, you're going to have architects and contractors and plumbers and all these different skill sets, and it's the combination of all of that that leads to a great house. Websites typically may not be quite as complicated as building a house, but it's that same sort of situation where there's a variety of different skills. A key skill, which is often what people focus on as the only, mistakenly thinking this is the only thing they need, is the visual design, how it looks. And that is important. It's also important that the design be done in a way that will fit your content as it changes over time, so that you want not just a static design. That is, if you're designing a flyer or something, you know that that flyer is never going to change. But when you're designing a website, you're going to have hopefully new content coming into that site all the time. And so you want to have a design that doesn't require a designer to get involved with every bit of new content in order to have it look good. So you really want a framework that works well for a wide variety of content. Interaction design is sometimes thought of as a piece of visual design, but it's really a distinct thing, which is how does somebody interact with your website? How do the menus work? What kind of search do they have? Is there some sort of calendar? How do they get from one thing to the next? And then we'll look at a number of sort of more elaborate interaction design techniques. A very common weakness of website designs is that they were designed by people with a print design background, and they sort of think of the website as pages on a screen. And when you do that, you tend to miss a lot of opportunities to make use of the interactivity that websites offer. We'll see a bunch of examples of that as well. The way your ticket purchasing and donations flow works is another piece of interaction design. And then the way people can share via their social media or see what you're doing on your social media, and whether they can comment on what you're doing. These are also all part of the interaction design. Visual design is really important because it's such a strong factor in establishing your brand. When people look at a website, and there have been studies done on this, it takes actually only a fraction of a second for people to begin to have an opinion about your organization. And within a few seconds, they've really formed their impression. And so you can't really set your impression through text. People form a fairly strong first impression of your organization before they've had time to read any amount of text. So it's really important that your site's appearance reflects the quality of your organization and your music. And in many cases it doesn't, because you're really a musical organization, you're not a website organization, and it's all too easy for the website to be neglected and for it not to really reflect the values and quality that you want. So this is a place that I recommend people really think about hard, and is one of the reasons why I think it's worth making a significant investment in the website. It is other than your concerts, probably the most potent way in which you project your organization out into the world. The website's also an extraordinary opportunity to stay connected with your audience, and there's actually a variety of things that you do to do that, like having email newsletters, responding to emails people send you, how you deal with social media, but all of those things are hooked into your website. So your website is sort of a central place for all of that. A whole other aspect of website design that people that come from traditional graphic design backgrounds tend not to think about so much, but is really, really important, is what's been called information architecture, the structure of your content and how it's navigated, and content strategy, which is how you decide what is on your site. Making it easy for visitors to find what they're looking for is a key goal for any website. This is just one of the core things that you really need to do. And one of the places we've seen some websites go wrong is people want to innovate in the design of their websites. And keep in mind that navigation is not the place where you want to innovate. Navigation is sort of like the gas pedal and the brake pedal on your car, right? Car makers may innovate in the way the body looks, and they may innovate in the visuals of the interior, but they don't try to innovate in the position of the gas pedal and the brake pedal. So, we recommend that for, the core structure and navigation of your site, that you give people what they expect, because it just makes it easier for them to find what they're looking for. There's plenty of places to innovate in terms of visual appearance and copy and interaction design. So as you're thinking about how you present information on the website, you want to make it easy for people to find the events that people are looking for and other information they're looking for. You may also want to promote things that they might not be looking for. You're looking to expose people to things that may interest them, but they wouldn't know to look for. You also want to make it easy for them to get help. If people are having a hard time finding what they're looking for, you want to make sure that you've got conspicuous links for people to send you an email or to call if there's a phone number that is attended. You can also go to things like live chat if you really have the resources to do that and want to provide great support. You want to make it easy for people to join your community. And so that should be part of your content on the site, is things that talk about your community and the various ways that people can become part of it through social media or your newsletter list or joining events. And in thinking, so a lot of that has to do with sort of information architecture and how you structure things, and then what you choose to put on your site is something that's come to be called content strategy, which has become a burgeoning field in the last few years. It's something that any large website did implicitly, but didn't really get named until relatively recently. And one of the things that's really led to this being a hot topic is the fact that many, many websites that have been around for a long time actually end up with too much content. And particularly when you have an organization where you have different constituencies that want to add content into the website, you end up with just too much stuff for people to be able to find what they want. So the main message I want to leave you with on content strategy, well, really is two. Just have a conscious content strategy. What is the content that's most important for you to have on your site? And if you don't have it, find a way to create it. And then also think about, what is the content that isn't really that important, because if it's not that important, it's actually better not to have it there, because if it's there, you need to provide some navigation for people to be able to get to it, and that conflicts or adds complexity in them finding the things that they do want. And also, it's maintaining a level of polish and quality for all of your content is also important. And the more you have, the harder it is to maintain that level. So focusing on the most important content is a critical factor. All right, now this is in the slides here, but I'm going to go ahead and switch into a live browser to show you around a couple of websites and illustrate some of these points through actual sites. So this is one that we built for the Green Music Center, a very prominent facility that was built here in Sonoma County a couple years ago. They spent $130 million on this facility, and it's now the home of the Santa Rosa Symphony, as well as having many other concerts that happen there. So let me point out a number of aspects of this site. So first, you can see on the home page, there's a slideshow going on. So that gives you immediately sort of a sense of movement and exposes people to concerts that they might not have been coming here to to see. And in this case, there's also some sort of messaging about here's their new executive director. So it's some message that the organization wanted to get out. So these sort of slideshows have become a very common feature on websites. Sometimes the images slide from one side to another instead of fading. But this is a really effective way to just make more use of that most precious real estate, that what they call the above the fold area, the part of the site that somebody is immediately going to see when they open the site without any scrolling. It does require some restraint. That is, it's probably not a good idea to go much beyond 3 items. You can maybe go to 4. I've seen some go to 5. Keep in mind that people aren't going to sort of sit and stare at that for a long time, probably. Another common error is to put too much text on them, because people, you want them to go by fast enough that people don't get bored and just navigate away. So you just can't put very much text there, or people don't have the time to read it. And there's a number of subtleties in how these things can work. And this one, there are little dots on the bottom that navigate, so you can switch to another one. They chose not to put in play and pause controls or forward and back arrows, but those are all things you can do. So these are all aspects of the interaction design, which have a visual design component as well, where there's a lot of little choices. When you just look at these things as a website user, you may not realize that there's probably a dozen specific choices that were made in how this was done. So, you probably want to find a partner who can help guide you through some of those choices and understand, based on your values and your goals, how you want all of that to work. Now, here's another example of sort of elevating information that people may not be looking for, but they want to get out to people. So this has a news bar. So this stripe here in the middle is a place that they can put an announcement that they want to just sort of put in front of people. The core of this is the list of events. And so this shows the next upcoming events. Obviously, it's not a complete list of events, but it gets onto the home page the events that are coming up most quickly, and then a link to go look at all of the events, and we'll take a look at that. Once somebody comes to your website, particularly if they found it through search, they may go off and do something else and never come back. So it's really valuable to be able to get people to join your email list so that you can proactively communicate to them as new things are happening, as you have new information that you want to share. And despite the growth of social media, email newsletters really remain the predominant way to communicate with your constituency. There are a couple of questions here that I will address. The question is, if they're not using Flash, how does that slideshow work? You can do that today with JavaScript. So there's really no need for Flash for things like menus and slideshows. A few years ago, it was a widely used technology for that sort of thing, but there's really no need for it anymore for that kind of thing. Another question was whether there was any way to prevent viewers from downloading content or images. There's really not. I mean, there are limited things you can do, but it's really a futile effort if someone is very determined, and I guess I would question whether it's really an important goal. Typically, the images are relatively low resolution. It's not something that someone's going to be able to put on a big poster or something. But it's a trade-off you have to make. There are some things you can do to make it harder. There's really nothing you can do that will stop somebody who is determined. So let's go and dive into the way events are presented here a little bit more. If I click on View All Events, I get to a page that lists all of the events in the season. At certain times of the year, they have events from multiple seasons that have been published. Right now, there is only one season, but if there were multiple seasons out there, you would have a list of seasons shown up here. And then they also provide 2 different ways. In this case, this is a performance hall that has a number of different groups that use it. And so you can view just by date, which is what most people are going to want to do. You can also view by presenter. That is just a different sorting of the same information by, who is organizing that particular concert. And then when you're in the date view, they do show the little icon there that indicates who the presenter is. So that's just an example of how, in many cases, depending upon the nature of your hall and the nature of your organization, there may be idiosyncratic ways that you want to offer to allow people to sort and find things most effectively. In this case, they didn't present a real calendar sort of view. It's just a chronological date list. Now, once I am interested in a particular event, I can click on that event. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out here was this is another example of sort of trying to expose events that people might not be looking for. So they're promoting in a top banner here a few upcoming events that they want to make known. Now, so if we go and we explore one of these events in particular, this is what we call an event detail page. So this is all the information that's there about the event. So they use a big banner photo. There's some description of the event. There's the basic information about what's being performed and what the pricing is. They also provide, in many cases, videos of the performers. This is really a great way for if someone isn't sure if they want to come to this concert and maybe they don't know this performer or they don't know this music, to give them something that they can see and listen to educate themselves. So then a video is a really effective technique for engaging people more in the content and educating them. And of course, there's audio there with that video. It's actually easier these days to share video than just audio. In this case, this video is on YouTube, and we recommend doing that. Whenever you have content that you can put on YouTube, just put it there, because people actually search on YouTube a lot, and people will find your organization or your orchestra or your concert, and they'll find it by doing a search on YouTube when they might not have actually found your website. And then once a video is on YouTube, it's straightforward to then embed that video on your website. And by using an embedded video from YouTube rather than trying to host the video as part of your website, they pay all the bandwidth cost of delivering that video, and they also adapt that video, so whether somebody is on an old web browser or a newer web browser or a tablet or a phone, that video will play. And if you want to do that yourself with a video actually stored on your website, it's relatively involved because of all the different standards used by different devices today. Now, ticketing, of course, is a key thing that almost all event-based organizations want to do. And for ticketing, we recommend going with a partner, and we will talk about that in a few moments. Another thing you want to do is put in the social media sharing, and we'll also talk about that in a couple of minutes. But before we get to those topics, I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about how they maintain all of this information. Particularly for an organization that has a lot of events, if you needed to build a separate web page for every one of these events, it would be tedious, and it would also be hard to maintain the visual consistency, that is to have everything styled the same for every event, and it would also be hard to have lists like we saw on the program page listing where things could be sorted by presenter or sorted along the calendar. And the key here is to have everything organized in a database. This is a database-driven website. The people that put the content in here never need to actually lay out this page. This page layout is part of the structure of how the site was built. I'm going to switch over into another browser here where I've logged into the site as an administrator. And this is what we call the back-end view, or the control panel view. So here, this is the interface that the people who manage the site use to add content to the site. And this site is completely managed by a non-technical team. The people who manage all the content on this site have no particular technical web skills. You can see there's currently 159 events on the site. This is the one that we were just looking at, so I'll click on that just so that we can see what their experience is like. So because this is a database-driven site and because it has a custom database with just the fields that are needed for them, when they are adding an event or editing an event, they have a page like this that has exactly the fields that they need in order to enter that data. So the person providing the data doesn't need to remember what kinds of things they need to add. They don't need to know anything about how to format any of the information. They just fill in this form. For the image, they just click a button to upload an image from their computer. Remember, we saw that you could sort by who was presenting. Here's where there's a list of things, and they can just click to choose who it is. They can put in the various pricing. The tickets are actually handled by a different organization. In this case, actually, since this is the San Francisco Symphony concert, the San Francisco Symphony handles the ticketing. So that Buy Tickets button that we saw, if we look back here, this Buy Tickets button here actually takes you off of this website. Now, in this case, because this is a San Francisco Symphony concert, if we click that button, we end up on the San Francisco Symphony site, so you sort of lose a little bit of the feeling of still being on the Green Music Center site. For some of the other events, if we go to, say, the SSU Chamber Singers, in this case, if I click Buy Tickets, now I'm actually on a different site. I'm on the site for the ticketing company that they use, but it is styled to look like the Green Music Center site. So at least it feels okay. It looks like they're having a little bit of a problem here with having put in an image of the seating that is too big to fit in this spot that it's in. So here, they just, whatever ticketing system you're using, whatever, if it's a San Francisco Symphony or some other thing, they can just paste in. That ticketing system will give them a URL, a web address for where you buy tickets for that event. They just paste that in here, and that will then cause that Buy Tickets button to appear on the page for that event. And when you click that button, it will follow this link. Here is the description of that program. This is using what's called a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, or rich text editor widget. So they can just type text in here for whatever they want to have appear in the description. And it can be styled very much like if you're working in Word. So the fact that those words are italic, you can just make them italic or not. Also, particularly for classical music, having something like this can make it much easier to if you're doing Bartok or, many composers, you end up needing to find special characters. And so this gives you an interface so you can find those umlauts and so forth that you may need for a foreign name. Then there's these different blocks of text, and because each of these is broken out as a separate block, the person who is entering this content doesn't need to think about where this stuff goes on the page. It says, here's the performers, list the performers. Here's the program, put in whatever you want to say about the program. In order to have that YouTube video appear, all they need to do is go to YouTube, get the ID of that video on YouTube, and paste it in here. And all of the code to make that video appear at the appropriate size with the chosen options on that page is handled by the page. This is also set up to handle videos from Vimeo, which is another service. It also has a built-in audio player so they can upload their own audio files. It can handle sponsored logos. It has a sold-out checkbox option for so that they can, just by clicking that, they can shut down ticket purchasing and put a little sold-out banner on that. So by having this structured database that has been designed exactly for their needs, you'll see that each of these fields, if we go back and look again at the event, Let's go look at that same event so that we can see. So you see this text here, oops, this was one of those text blocks, right? All of this text here. This was another one of those text blocks. They don't need to know that that goes at the top of the second column. That happens automatically. Here's that third text block. They just entered in a link for the tickets, and that got attached to that button. And then they just put in an ID, a YouTube ID, and that caused this whole thing to be generated. So you can see how much easier it is for them to maintain all that information and to have a polished presentation with consistent design by taking this database-driven approach. So let me switch back into my PowerPoint here and see, I think we talked about all of these things. Oh, so here, let me go back to the browser here and show you another site. This is one we did for the Music Academy of the West in Santa Barbara. Really interesting organization. You folks being in the music world may be more familiar with it. Most people in the outside world are not, but it's been around for more than 50 years. They take about 150 students a summer, and it's a free program. It's entirely philanthropically funded. And during their 8-week summer season, they have hundreds and hundreds of events. And then they have a scattering of events through the rest of the year. So you can see this interface is not unlike what was done for the Green Music Center. They did add a number of additional things, though. They have a calendar presentation, and the bold days show which days there are events, so you can jump in and see what the events are on that day. You can also navigate directly to another month. And they also provided searching in a variety of other ways. So I can say I want to find all of the orchestra events. Or even because they do have this summer season where they have lots and lots and lots of performances and people are looking for particular performances, they actually list everything by instrument. And I can say I want to find all the tenor trombone events. So, you know, this again shows how when the goals of a specific organization are understood, the kind of information architecture and interaction design can be customized to best meet the goals of that organization. In their case, when you click this Buy button, you're again going to an event detail page, not too dissimilar from what we saw on Green Music Center. And also, like Green Music Center, once I click the Buy Tickets Online button, I'm now on a third-party ticket purchasing site because they can handle all of the details of the purchasing process. So now let me go back to the PowerPoint. So as we saw an example there of the videos, and that you can add audio as well, and you can add photos, that this rich media makes the site much more engaging for people coming to your site to learn about concerts or learn about your organization. There's lots of different ways you can use photos, both as sort of banners on the home page, as banners on an event calendar page, as additional photos on a detail page for a particular event. And I'll show you another example from AXO's own site in a couple of minutes. Videos, as I mentioned, really the best way to do those is to just put them on YouTube as long as it's content that other people can search. Vimeo is a sort of competitor to YouTube, and they have a free service that works very much like YouTube. One of the interesting things that they have is they also have a paid service. It costs about $200 a year to become a member of Vimeo Pro. But when you're a member of Vimeo Pro, you can upload videos there that you can then embed on your own website, and you can set permissions. So you can make it so that somebody searching on Vimeo won't find that video, and somebody seeing that video embedded on your website can't embed it on their own website. So they give you a lot more sort of privacy or sharing controls than YouTube provides. So if you have a video that, that you don't want to put on YouTube, or that you may not have the rights to make available other than on your site, this is a good way to do it. Another issue with YouTube is that YouTube has a very sophisticated automatic content protection scheme. So if you put up a video that has a piece of music that is copyrighted, then they actually can do an amazingly good job of recognizing music. Now, I don't know how well this works actually for original performances, but certainly for any kind of recorded music, it's very effective. My daughter, for example, was a competitive figure skater for years, and I would shoot just a home video of one of her figure skating performances, and there would be some piece of music playing in the background that's just a recorded piece of music that she had chosen, and when I upload those videos to YouTube, it says, this is a potentially infringing piece of music. And in that case, the content owner can choose whether they want to allow you to use that music but just place advertisements on your video, which is the most common thing. Or in some cases, they actually block the audio. So when you run into those problems, Vimeo is a great solution because Vimeo doesn't do any of that sort of blocking. We saw an example of video on the Green Music Center site. Here's an example of a photo gallery on the AXO site. Let me go switch back over into the browser so we can look at that live. You can build in photo galleries on your site with whatever the content is that you want to share. And this is a great way to just make your organization more sort of vibrant or richer for the people coming to your site. And it also, oh, there's me in the middle. It also is just a way to promote your events, and also people who are at the events often like to be able to come back and see pictures of themselves at the events. And if you have a good platform where these photos are built in, it's really easy to add all these photos into your website. These galleries can be automatically created so that you can add as many galleries as you want. And while you could put photos on Flickr or some third-party site, you sort of lose some control, and they aren't really associated with your site in the same way anymore. So we like to actually build the photos into the site. There's a question about whether I would recommend YouTube over Vimeo. And it really depends upon your goals and your rights to the video. YouTube is searched far, far more often. So there is huge promotional value in putting your video on YouTube because of people that are going to search YouTube and find it on YouTube. And and then in the description, you can have the URL linking back to your website and promoting your organization. But in cases where you don't want that or you don't have the rights to do that, Vimeo can be a really good solution. Another issue the questioner asked is the YouTube videos, often after you play them, will recommend other videos at the end of playing the video. You can actually control that in the options for the embedded code. And in that Green Music Center video player, for example, you see we don't have them entering the full embed code that YouTube provides. We have them only providing the YouTube ID, and then our page is built to provide a version of the YouTube embed code that does things like turn off the related videos option at the end. So there is some amount of control there, but unquestionably you get more control from Vimeo. And in some cases, we've seen people put the videos on both places. They put it on YouTube for people to be able to share them, find them on YouTube, but then they put them on Vimeo because they get more for the embedded player, because they get more control on Vimeo. So we've talked, I showed examples of ticket purchasing in a couple of places. There are many services that provide ticket purchasing. There are the higher end ones that can handle reserved seating like audience view and ticketing, Vertex, Tessitura. And all of these are typically integrated in a similar way. That is, you have links on your website that link people over to that third-party site to do the actual ticket purchasing. But that third-party site has some mechanism to allow you to style it so that it looks very much like your website. And it can even have a navigation bar just like the one on your website that links back into the pages of your site. And then for smaller organizations with smaller budgets, and especially if you don't need reserved seating, there are some very easy to use, very low cost services. The two most widely used ones being brown paper tickets and Eventbrite. And these are really easy to set up. If you are actually not offering any kind of online ticket purchasing, I would at least do Eventbrite. It's just pretty easy to do. Somebody mentioned Patron Manager as another good program. There's literally dozens, if not hundreds, of ticketing systems and donor management systems out there. So we've already seen those examples, so I'll skip through those. Donations are, in some sense, it's similar to selling tickets in that you're, providing a commerce transaction with your visitors. So in many cases, you can handle that through your purchasing system. You can also just do it very simply with PayPal. Let me just show you an example of a small organization we did that for. This is a local community choir near us. They have essentially no budget for their website, but we do some volunteer work for them. This is the sort of site you get when there's no professional visual design involved at all. But here, with just literally an hour or two of work, we were able to create for them a series of donation buttons. And these are PayPal buttons, and it's not the most polished experience. Once you click one of those buttons, you're then on a PayPal page that very clearly looks like a PayPal page. But it's very inexpensive to set up, and I don't think it's really going to stop people from donating if they want to donate to the organization, the fact that the pages aren't really fully styled. But another thing you want to think about is once somebody does donate to your organization, how are you going to continue to communicate with them? Because you really want to be maintaining that list. And so there are email marketing systems, and so you might take anybody who comes in and donates and add them to your email marketing system. A more sophisticated approach, which is very much worthwhile for a larger organization, if you're using something like Tessitura, it has a whole customer relationship management system. So it's maintaining a database of everybody who's ever come to any of your concerts, who has ever donated to you, and allows you to market to, to send emails to any group and so forth. There's a question about selling recordings in a downloadable format. This is actually not a place where I have any experience. I think you get into a whole set of issues around whether you want any sort of copy protection. It would not be hard to build into a website something that would simply allow people to purchase, say, an MP3 file. But you probably want to look at whether you can do it through iTunes or one of the other music services. It's the sort of thing I would research for somebody if they wanted to pursue that. Here's another example of something you want to do for donors, which is communicate to them what are the benefits of being a donor. So actually, let me switch back to the live browser again and go back. So this is on the Green Music Center site. In their case, they offer a number of different donorship levels. And so they have this page where as you choose what level, it tells you how much you would have to spend and what the benefits are that you get. You can have a simpler or a more elaborate version of this kind of thing, but having just some informational pages that make it clear, what the value is you get and what the benefits are that you get for different kinds of donor levels is effective. They don't try to then have e-commerce for this, right? They don't, there's not a click here to donate $25,000 button. They figure if you're going to do that, you're going to have a conversation with somebody. So, they do have a Donate Now button that goes over to the same system they use for ticketing. I would think actually one thing I would recommend they do here is I would put a big conspicuous phone number here for whoever handles donors. I believe they did something like that over here on the Music Academy of the West. So they have a simpler page that runs through the benefits of the different levels of donors. It doesn't have the interactivity that the Green Music page has, but they then put over here in this right column both a comprehensive set of links, a picture of the person who you can talk to and their phone and their email if you want to talk about donating, and then they do donor spotlights where they provide, here's somebody who's donated to us, and actually a detail page you can link through that sort of tells you the story, right? Because the most effective marketing, and soliciting donors really is marketing, the most effective marketing is always storytelling. And so if you can tell a personal story about somebody who's been a donor, hopefully you can pull on somebody's heartstrings and purse strings a little more effectively. Social media we've talked about briefly. The thing that is, I think, confusing to people often is that there's three completely different things that you can do to integrate social media with your site. And it's important to keep in mind these three separate things. So one is just linking to your Facebook and Twitter pages. So let's go back and look at these sites. If we look down here at the bottom of the Music Academy of the West site, for example, I've got these links. If I click that Facebook link, it just takes me to Facebook. I'm now on their Facebook page. And there would be a like button here. I've already liked it, so it says liked instead of like. But if I wanted to like their page, I would have to click that button and then come here. But this lets me see whatever they're putting on their Facebook page. Now, there's also sharing buttons. If we look at Green Music Center, for example, and we go to an event, you can see here are these sharing buttons. This is labeled like, but it's really share. This is using a set of widgets from a company called Add This. So you can put in a couple of them that you think are common, and then you get a list of additional ones here. And this just makes it really easy for somebody to share through their own social media a link to your page, right? So that Facebook link on the bottom is taking you to the Green Music Center's Facebook page. This Facebook button, if I click that, it's going to bring up a little box for me to post to my Facebook timeline a link to this event. And you really want people to do that for a couple of reasons. One is it just exposes people to that event because all of the friends of this person will see that post in their news feeds. Also, Google looks at social media mentions as an indication of the authority or interest level in a page. So in terms of getting your pages showing up well in search engine results, they will do better if people are sharing those links via social media. So that's two of the three things you can do. The third thing you can do, which actually neither of these sites do, but let me show you a site in a different domain that does this, is to actually have a like button. I thought they did it. Here, I'll go to another one. I'm not sure actually which of these sites have the like button live. Yeah, this one doesn't either. Okay, you can add a like button here. I know one that has it as a local restaurant. We did. And what the like button does is it allows people to like your Facebook page, okay, see that's this like button right here, allows people to like your Facebook page without leaving your website. So this is not a share button. It's not saying share this page via my social network. It's saying like your organization's page. And once somebody has liked your page, then every time you post an update to your page, it shows up in their news feed. So it's a great way to be able to communicate into people's social media. So it's really valuable to get people to like your page. One of the reasons why I think those other organizations I showed didn't put this like widget on there is that you have very limited control over how it looks. Facebook basically controls how that looks, and it often doesn't fit aesthetically into your design as much as you'd like. Facebook does give you a couple options. This is sort of the full-blown form of it here, where like is to like the page, send is actually to share the page via your own social media. And if the person is logged into Facebook at the time they're viewing your web page, it can also show them pictures or names of all of your other friends who have already liked this page. So it's for most companies it's sort of too much, but it's a way of putting out social proof. It's saying, wow, a lot of people I know actually like this. And yet another thing you can do is if you have a blog on your site, you can have those blog posts automatically driven to Facebook and to Twitter and other social media in a variety of ways, sort of beyond what we can get into in this webinar, but it certainly can be done. Just want to mention email newsletters. You know, despite all the enthusiasm about social media, email newsletters are more effective than anything else you can do. So if you don't have one, you should. And your email newsletter should look something like your web page so that it maintains that brand consistency. And then on your website, it should be easy for people to join. Right? So if we go back and look at Green Music Center, right on the home page, sign up for the e-newsletter. One thing I would recommend as an improvement over this is you want to have as compelling a pitch there as you can. This doesn't really give any benefits here. You might say, you know, be the first to be notified when tickets go on sale, or sign up for, you know, discounts are the best. If you include discounts in your newsletter, people love discounts. So if people will do that, you get their email address, you now have another way to communicate with them. And you shouldn't have to manage this yourself. There are a number of services that do this. They're quite inexpensive. Constant Contact and MailChimp are the two most widely used. And those services provide a little bit of code that you can put on your website, so when someone fills in that email address, it goes directly to the list that they maintain for you. Search engine optimization is something that you want to think about. It may or may not be important to your organization depending upon how people are finding you, but for many organizations it is important, and if you're trying to get a high search engine rank on competitive terms where other people are trying to go for those same terms, it's a challenging thing to do. Local search is much more easily achieved, good local search results. So there's a lot to this. It's beyond what we're going to talk about here, but I can glad to talk one-on-one with people about search engine optimization if it's something that's important to you. It's important for all websites, though, to really be thoughtful about what kind of content management system the site is built on, because that's what's going to determine how easily you can maintain the content of your site and how much flexibility you have and how reliable it all is. And there's two basic categories. It's either software that you host yourself. It runs on a server that you're responsible for. And these are the typical open source platforms, of which WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal are the most common. And then there's what's called a hosted CMS, or sometimes a cloud CMS, or software as a service. My company, Webdanta, is one of the providers of that kind of service. The advantage of this is you have no technical hassle. Somebody else worries about keeping that server going, keeping it backed up. We believe this is the way to go for an organization that wants maximum quality and reliability with minimum hassle. And again, I'm happy to talk with people individually about this. A final point I want to make is just that managing pulling everything together and getting all the content and writing the text is time-consuming, and very commonly people underestimate how much of an effort this is. There are consultants who can help with this, or you may want to task somebody in your organization who can help with this, or your web firm may be able to help with it. But just don't engage in wishful thinking that no one is going to have to put a lot of time into project management. Mobile is something you want to think about. I wouldn't build any website today that was not mobile friendly, and that's again another area where we can talk about details one-on-one with anyone who's interested. But mobile is now about 20% of all internet traffic and about half of traffic for sort of entertainment-oriented sites. I'm going to skip through the details there, but here's an example of the Green Music Center site, very mobile-focused version that's a totally different presentation than the desktop site. Mobile apps are something that I would say for most organizations are not relevant. Mobile apps are a great way to connect with people that are dedicated customers of yours, but they're not a way to expose your organization to more customers. And casual customers aren't likely to want to install your app on their phone. So when it comes to getting your site built, you can go to a freelancer. You can also go to a web agency, which typically is a higher quality, more sophisticated, but somewhat more expensive way to go. Keep in mind that you do need both design and development, and you may or may not get all that in one person. Typically, you don't find one person who's really great at both of those skills. I'm going to skip through some of this. We've really already talked about why you want your website to be database driven. So if you're ready to get started, unless you have somebody as part of your team who really is a web expert, you want to find a consultant to work with you to help define your needs. And then once you can define what you need, you can get, and you have a document that describes that, you can get proposals. And keep in mind that you're really looking for a mix of capabilities here. You're looking not just for somebody who can design beautiful pages or somebody who can code beautiful pages, but you need people who can do both of those things, and you need to define your strategy so that you're putting the right stuff on your pages and having the right functions in your website, and you need somebody to manage the whole thing and make sure that all the pieces come together and that it's executed well. So we would be glad to help if you're looking for somebody to help. My firm focuses really on the technical and management and strategy pieces. We've partnered with Athena Design, who did the design for most of those sites I showed you, to do visual design. And we're happy to spend half an hour with you on the phone and do a free consultation. Even if you're not really ready to build a new website, if you just want to get some feedback on your site or get, be able to bounce off some problems. I love just to talk with people about what the challenges are they're facing and what your goals are and what you could accomplish with the web. So please feel free to take us up on that if you are interested. And with that, I will turn it back over to Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Michael. I hope that everyone enjoyed the webinar and found it informative. And thank you for all attending. Our next webinar will be taking place on January 15th. Registration information will be available in a couple of weeks, but that will be with Michael Costa of Philharmonia Baroque about gift accounting and budgets. And do save the date for next year's conference, which will be held in Sonoma County, July 31st to August 2nd. And we will be going to a concert at the Green Music Center. So it'll be exciting. And then also, Chris sends her apologies that she is not available today. She is attending the Kell Nonprofits Convention in San Francisco. So if you have any questions, feel free to direct them to michael@webvanta.com, and we will be sending a recording of this webinar to you all in the next couple of days. So thank you very much, and thank you, Michael.
Thanks, everyone.